Hello and welcome to TopFormz. Today we're going to be talking about the quality improvement plan. So let's just go to the compliance and other section. So I'm first of all going to be talking you through my quality improvement plan and then really showing you how to document it. So essentially within the actual report you'll see that there's a standard at the top. So in this case 1.1 program. The educational program enhances each child's learning and development. So it will then go into all of the different standards, and underneath that you are going to have every single element which is really related to that standard. So what you'll notice here is that I have done my assessment for every single element on certain dates, and in most cases it was on the 10th of April, but there might have been a change in the day that I have actually done my assessment. So I'm just going to select one of the elements from standard 1.1 just to actually show you how I have documented it. And if you want to just increase the size of the window, it just makes it a little bit easier to see. So I have done this assessment on the 10th of April. It's for standard 1.1. So I'm having a look at concept and element 1.1.1. So I've had a look at my practices within my home environment, and then I've identified what those practices are and really documented it into TopFormz. I've then thought about, have I actually met the requirements of that concept and element, and then chosen either met or not met, and then I've identified whether I need to take any action. So in this instance I have not identified any planned actions that need to be taken, and therefore what you'll see is that nothing has really been identified there. I also have not attached any supporting documentation. Let's just have a look at another area. So there might be instances where you have actually met a requirement of that concept and element, but you still want to really take some action. So in this case I have identified that I'm looking at standard 2.1. I've looked at concept and element 2.23, looked at the practices in my home once again, identified what those are, identified whether I've actually met the elements of that standard, and whether there's any identified whether there's any action to be taken. So in this case I identified an issue. I looked at whether it's a high, a medium or a low priority. I then identified what goal or outcome do I really want to get out of my planned action. What are the steps that I'm actually going to take, and how am I really going to measure it? I then had a look at the due date. So I've identified a due date, and why it's red in this profile is because we're almost at the end of April. So it's really showing me that I need to be taking action very quickly. I can then also identify whether I've started taking action, whether I haven't started at all, you know, what really the status is. I can also attach some supporting documentation. So instead of adding one, from scratch, which you can do by basically clicking on the plus button at the top, I'm just going to edit this one and just really take you through the steps. And it's all of those actual areas that we have already seen. I can also go and have a look at some guidance under the National Quality Standards. And we were looking at 2.3. Is that correct? 2.2.3. So let's just have a look at the National Quality Standards. So we were looking at 2.2.3. So there is 2.2.3, so we can identify really what the law is stating and all that kind of stuff while we are actually reflecting and really considering what we're doing. So once you've had a look at that, you can really document what your practices are. You can then attach evidence and all those kind of things. So in this case I didn't attach evidence. If you want to attach evidence, let's say yes. And then we can either take a photo or we can choose a photo. So, and then you can also basically change what the priority is. You can also change the due date or anything like that. So in this case, I'm just going to cancel what I've done. because it's just really an example. So now if I actually wanted to send something to my scheme, so because there's action to be taken on this area, I'm going to say that I'm going to send it. So I want to print it. You just click on the three dots at the top and then select print, and what you'll see is that it comes out in a nice pretty format. So that's basically doing one item at a time. If I, however, wanted to send a few at a time, what you would do is you would go to the web-based version. So this is exactly the same thing that you would have seen earlier. So there's my requirement over there, but I want to really print this as a summary so that it has the nice pretty pictures. Otherwise, if you print it as a list, it will look exactly like that initial report format. So what you will see is if you print it, it's going to come up with all of those individual pages. You can then essentially send this through to your family daycare scheme, and it's going to have every single standard, what the element is, and all those kind of things. So it is actually really handy, and it just allows you to basically assess your actual performance in little bits at a time, as opposed to having this large document that you need to work through. So that's it on the quality improvement plan. If you have any questions, you can email me at hello@topformz.com. Thank you.